Hi, everybody. I'm Larry Snyder, and this is my show, Science Possible. Now, I like to do a lot of science stuff on Science Possible. I also like to do a lot of fun stuff. I'm a grandfather, recently a grandfather, and I have little grandbabies. So I was thinking of all the fun stuff that I liked when I was a kid. One of the wonderful things that I enjoyed in my childhood was Diver Dan. You can find episodes of Diver Dan on the web, but Diver Dan was an explorer. He had a big hard hat diving suit, and he would go under the sea and help the fish. And he had a mermaid friend, Minerva, and it was just a wonderful thing for me. I have great memories of the Diver Dan show. Well, I've always wanted a Diver Dan helmet, and I think my grandkids would get a big kick out of that helmet too. So this episode of Science Possible or this series of episodes is going to be how to make one of these divers helmets. It turns out that they're quite expensive. A U.S. Navy Mark V divers helmet's at $8,000 or $9,000. They're very expensive, but I think we can make a wonderful facsimile of one that would, at least at first glance, fool most everyone and do the job of looking cool, maybe as a lamp or a side table piece. So let me show you what we got going here. I think I can turn this. Well, I got on the interwebs and I found this cool picture of a U.S. Navy Mark V helmet. This is a great piece of engineering, this copper and brass U.S. Navy diver's helmet. But, as I mentioned, they're quite expensive. But they're really, really cool looking. I like the stand here. I like the color combos on the helmet. They make these helmets in lots of finishes, copper, brass. This one is silvered copper and brass castings. Wow, isn't that something? So we're going to see if we can whoop one up. Now, when I decide to whoop one up, there's some features on this helmet that I definitely want to keep. I want this whole retro cool look to it. I want it to be metal, or at least look metal. And I want real glass lenses in those lights with the front visor and the side lights and the top. They're all called lights on this helmet. So I went junk holing, and let's zoom out here. Here's some of the stuff I've collected to make the diver's helmet. This is a wonderful glass butter dish. I'm going to make that my top light. And this is a glass, I don't know, coffee cup dish or something like that. That'll be my front light. And these octagons, and I have a whole stack of them here. I'll make those my side lights, cool octagon side lights. I got some copper tubing from the Home Depot. I got a pot and pan from the thrift store to make the interlock between the helmet and the bib. That's that front piece of the garb. I've got the hot glue gun. I got some glue. Of course, you got to have measuring devices. I picked up a globe. I was thinking, well, gee, there's a nice rigid plastic sphere that maybe I could use for that helmet. So let's see what we can. Oh, and this is something. This log carrier. This is a brass-plated steel log carrier. I'm going to be able to turn this into the bib, or at least a form for making my bib. So, with these materials at hand, and this wonderful picture off the internet for what I want to ultimately achieve, I did some more searching, and I was able to find a little blueprint of a U.S. Navy Mark V diver's helmet. So this is pretty cool, this not to mention, but I took a caliper and I measured a lot of things and I got some proportionality, and I came up with my own list of what everything on the helmet should be size-wise. So I've got something to go by, and now we'll have to start getting to our construction phase. I decided that the 12-inch sphere of this globe might be a little bit too small for the helmet. I need really a 13.5-inch sphere for the helmet. And I looked and I looked and I looked and I couldn't find a globe in a junk hole that was about 13.5 or 14 inches, something that would be closer to what I needed. So I think on this helmet, I'm going to wind up making a paper mache balloon, 13.5 inches, and then making my own helmet sphere. And we'll do that in the next episode. All right, this is about the third layer of paper and paper mache on this ball. It's important for me to make it pretty stiff, so I'm going to maybe even put 4 layers on. We'll see how it's feeling after 3 layers, but I want it to be self-supporting because I'm going to, I think, glue the side lights, top light, and front light to it, and even the flange, and then fiberglass this helmet. So it's really got to have some kind of structural strength to it. I'm putting on the paper, and you just make sure you put this on overlapped and squeeze out all the air. The better you make this ball, the less you'll have to trim it up. You know, it's got to be pretty round looking, and we want it to even have a shiny copper surface. So the better I make this paper mache ball, the easier it's going to be for me later. Okay, so you got to do this one coat at a time, and then you got to let it dry overnight, or even more if it's very humid out, and get it stiffened up real good and make a strong ball. So keep going on it.
Action.
Okay, so we're completing the individual elements of the diving hat. This is going to be the top light. And I've constructed all the flat parts out of these. They're self-stick floor tiles. I peeled this stuff off the back, and I was hoping for the floor tile sticks stick to themselves, but this adhesive just is not that great. So I'm using hot glue, and I've made the vertical sections around the light out of 3 layers of this floor tile material. I'm just trying it. It's nice and stiff. It's easy to cut with razor blades and scissors. And I'll make a gluement, and then I will assemble the gluement and...
What's a gluement?
Bond to it. A gluement is like a weldment. That's a good question. A gluement is a bunch of pieces put together to make a laminated, stronger part. Yeah. So this is going to be the gluement for the top light once I get that hot melt glued together. I'll show you. I can put a little hot melt on here and show you how it goes together. This is 2 layers of the floor tile. The middle layer is just pieced together, and the outer.
That's the floor tile on your lap.
Yeah, it's the floor tile on my lap. I got the floor tile at a junk hole, and it was $1 for 10 of them.
That was a good deal.
So they're a dime a piece. They're not going to break the bank. And this whole project shouldn't cost a lot. It's it's all made of essentially materials you can get at thrift stores and the hardware store.
It might even be in your garage.
You might have a lot of this stuff. That's right. So I'm going to put this together. Now the hot melt glue, if you've never used it before, can be a little dangerous, okay? So it's basically melted plastic, and if you get it on your fingers, you're gonna be sorry. Now they make little silicone rubber fingers that you can put on when you're working with it, just to keep your hands a little cooler. But I don't know, my hands are tougher than
most.
You've
got asbestos hands. I'm wimpy though. I would wear the little fingers for sure.
Yeah, my hands are a little tougher than most.
So. Like heat.
So I glued up half of it, and I got it all stuck down, and now I'm gonna glue the other half of it.
Okay.
Maybe I could have gotten away with gluing the whole thing, but I just didn't. So. Now this is going to get bondoed over, so the edges aren't very important. We're going to trim any squeeze out of the glue up with a razor blade, and we'll even trim the floor tile. See, there's a little squeeze out of the glue right there.
Oh, yeah, kind of warped out.
Yeah. We'll trim that up.
Don't freak out if it squishes out a little bit like the peanut butter and
now
jelly
once you get
sandwich.
3 layers of this together,
Yeah.
these are pretty rigid. This is going to be my top light.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Nifty. Action.
Hi everybody. Remember the last time we're working on this, I told you I had to make up gluments for the various lights on that helmet, and I've got them done now. These are the Octagon side light gluments. I took some of my Octagon glass, and I made up these gluments out of floor tiles and hot glue. It's pretty simple to do. It just takes time. I spent about, I don't know, 4 hours probably on this gluement. There it goes, and the glass fits in it. Just like that.
Cool. Can you show it a little? Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going so fast.
I'm sorry.
People want to see.
That's good. So there's that, and I'm gonna make glass protectors out of copper.
Oh,
so
nice.
I've got that going here too, and I'm not done soldering this stuff up. I'm gonna cut it and I think not have a 2-layer effect, but a 1-layer effect. But anyway, I've started to make out, and this is just copper tubing I got at the Home Depot. It bends really easy. It solders really easy. I'm going to make up some highlights out of that. So there's the side light, and I've done the top light. Now I had that really cool butter dish that I scored, and that's my glass for that top light. And this is my top light glumant.
Yeah.
Ready to go. And I have a really complex glumant, and that is the faceplate glumant.
Ooh.
Okay, now I'm using a big plate for the glass on that. This is the back of the glumant, and I also put in, now the front light opens, and it'll also have a guard. So I've put in a hinge on this, like so, and there's my light. The light actually stiffens up the structure really nice, and the hinge, I put copper tubes in there as the barrels for the hinge.
Close so people can see.
There's the barrels for the hinge. That's the way it goes. All right, now these gluments are ready to bondo up and form, and I've got one done. This is a glumant that's all bondoed up. It's almost done. I think I'm gonna have another little fill layer because I got some
people see what you've done with
imperfections on this one. This is a glumant that's been bondoed up, and for bondo, I'm just using Auto Body Light Filler Bondo. It's real easy to work with, but use a respirator or use it outside because the fumes on that
stinks.
They're really stinky. You know, they say they're harmless fumes, but I don't trust that, so I use a respirator on that. So there's a glumant that's bondoed up, and I'm going to do that to all these other ones. Okay, so that's where we are right now. Talk to you next time. Hi, everybody. Well, I'm still working on this helmet. There's a lot of things to do on it, but I'll show you where I'm at. You can see that the paper mache ball part of the helmet is ready to rock here. I'm marking it out for where I have to cut to put the neck flange on. Now, the neck flange was actually a little bit of work. This neck flange is a pot and pan. I'm going to show you that this is the bottom of a pot. And
it sounds like a pot.
yeah, it does sound like a pot. And this is the top of the pot. Right there.
Thrift store pot?
Right. It was $3 thrift store pot and pan, pot with a lid. And I cut them off. I want to show you I cut them off with this. I don't have a lot of tools here, so I used this friable abrasive wheel. A friable just means it wears away as it cuts. And a drill.
Friable?
Friable, yeah.
So yeah, you were twirling it. Every time you twirl it, it
Every
goes
time
out
I
of
twirl?
focus. Yeah,
Okay.
you want people to see something.
Yeah.
Don't twirl so much. Okay, there we go.
Yeah, that's an abrasive cutoff wheel. And there's the cuts. Don't cut yourself on the cuts. They get sharp. But here's the result. This is the part where the pot meets the lid. And I wanted a bayonet mounting helmet. So I've machined bayonet studs.
Bayonet?
Bayonet grooves and studs. Bayonet is a little push and click way to mount. Now here's the studs. I drilled a hole, put a screw through it, and put a little 1/4-inch copper pipe on there. Just that'll be the little stud part of the bayonet. And then the bayonet groove itself, I cut with a tool called a Roto-Zip. This is a Roto-Zip. Right there, that's a Roto-Zip.
Roto-Zip?
Yeah, this is a handy home tool.
Roto-Zip.
I don't have many tools here, but this is a handy one.
Okay. I want to get a better look at that.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
So you're not moving it so fast. Okay, there we go. All right.
Yeah, I'll show you how this this all came together. So that when you put the two halves of the helmet and the bib together, it'll lock
I
together.
can feel it.
Right.
You just slid it there.
So the pot and pan didn't have this inner flange. The inner flange I cast with fiberglass and Bondo.
Which really stunk.
It really stinks. Yeah, wear your respirator when you do that. And I machined into the inner flange the little trackways for the bayonet. There's 4 of them.
Cool. Let me look at them from this angle too. So.
Well, on the inside
okay.
they won't show it all.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. All right.
And now it's time to bond the bayonet to the helmet and start putting in the windows and so forth. I've made some other little bits for the helmet. I made some wing nuts. Now the The helmet braille that goes around the bib is all held on with wing nuts, and of course the front faceplate is closed with a wing nut. So these are the wing nut assemblies that I've made, and you really have to make a little assembly. I super glued the washer to the nut, and then I put some wings on it, and I will.
The wings are totally your creation, right?
Right, and I will.
Nice.
I'll copper plate all this stuff with leaf before it goes on, and I also made the communication pod. There's the communication pod. You can see I've partially bondoed the communication pod. I have to sand it all up and make it pretty, but the communication pod goes on the helmet too. I'm actually finishing up some of the last little details that have to go onto this helmet before I assemble the whole thing. But I'm going to connect the helmet to the sphere probably today, and start getting that sphere hardened up with fiberglass and Bondo. All right, till next time, I'll show you where I'm at. Bye now.
Now.
Okay, I'm set up for fiberglassing. Now you can see I've got the sphere of the helmet already hot glued onto the bayonet. But the helmet's got to be hardened. You know, it's only paper mache, and that's not going to hold up. So I'm going to fiberglass it now.
Phew.
This is a real stinky procedure, so wear a respirator just like I'm doing. And you might want to wear gloves. I personally hate gloves, and I'd rather just wash my hands, but 4, 5, 6 drops of catalyst. Alright, so I got about 32 cc's of resin in there, 6 drops of catalyst. You got to mix your resin and catalyst really well. Make sure that there's nothing adhering to the cup or the bottom of the cup that doesn't get mixed with the catalyst. I usually mix it for 30 seconds or so. And now we are ready to fiberglass. Now I'm going to fiberglass this helmet from the bottom up. That way I can do the top of the sphere last. And you can see I've got the placement of the various lights and the radio transceiver set there because I want to not fiberglass those areas. The fiberglass is a pain to work with, it's stinky, and it's even expensive. So I don't need to waste fiberglass resin on the holes that I'm going to cut out of this sphere.
That's smart.
I'll just go over the edges a little bit. Alright, now I've pre-cut fiberglass cloth into essentially 1-inch strips here. Here goes one. I'm going to put my first fiberglass cloth on there. It's very important to wet out the fiberglass completely. Don't leave any dry fibers. And we want to go stingy on the resin. It's actually stronger the leaner it is. We call it lean. So I'm going to wet out the fiberglass, but with as little resin as possible. You can see these fibers right over here. They are wetted out, but it's kind of a little too juicy. So I'm going to transfer that fiberglass resin up here. You can see this is going to be a tedious procedure. It's going to take me quite a while to fiberglass this dome here, but it's going to be worth it. It's going to help the rigidity of the helmet. There we go. Now this piece of fiberglass cloth is completely wetted out, and I'm ready for my next one. Now the way I do it, I put a little resin right on the substrate where I'm going to put my cloth, just to get that wetted out first. And you can see that the aluminum has been scored up. I took that friable abrasive disc and I scored my aluminum. And now I'm going to put the next fiberglass cloth on. I make sure that I overlap the first one. These are going to be overlapping courses. You don't have to overlap much, 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch is fine. But they must overlap. And there I'm wetting out the layer of fiberglass.
You sound like Darth Vader.
Yeah, I do sound like Darth Vader in my respirator, but this respirator is a lifesaver. If you don't wear this respirator, you are going to get saturated with
I'm getting stunk out.
styrene monomer.
So.
Yeah, it's the same stuff you smell in the nail parlors
Goodbye, everybody.
in the mall. All right, my videographer is getting stunk out.
Yeah.
So thank you, Tui, for doing this video.
I love you, but I'm
I'll
getting
see
a
you
headache.
later after this is fiberglass.
Bye.
Hi everybody. Well, I've been busy. I've got some polyester applied to the dome and some of the other, these are going to be my brass castings for lights on the helmet. This is the front light on that. Now I've already got several layers of polyester on here. I call it, the polyester is Bondo. It's probably a mineral filled, talc filled Bondo. It sands really easy, and since it's talc, it's nice smooth sanding. I've got a fill on here over my layer of fiberglass, so I've got a really
Yeah, listen to
tough
that.
dome surface now. This is structurally, this is
Oh, wow.
this is great for what we want, but this is supposed to be a copper sphere, and for me, the copper sphere is going to be real smooth, and then the brass castings, they would have been sand castings. They'll be a little rougher, so I'm going to see if I work my sphere to a pretty good smooth surface. Now, I've had a fill and I've had some sandings on it. I've established some lines where my lights are going to go on here, so I really don't have to finish those areas at all. And I don't have to waste time on that. But I'm ready for another polyester fill, and I wanted to just make this little video showing you that. And I'm going to wear a respirator because Bondo is real stinky.
Good boy. Not looking forward to this part.
And I'm only going to do a small batch because my videographer does not have a respirator.
Yeah, I don't have a respirator, and I hate the way this stuff smells.
I've got
It gives
a
me a headache. Ugh.
floor tile spreader. I like these floor tiles to spread my Bondo. They're flexible, and I can curve them to the surface of the dome. Here's my Bondo. I'm all set to go.
Bondo.
I see my low spots that I have to fill. I've got quite a few of them. I'm just going to make a small batch of Bondo here.
Phew.
Now the way you catalyze the Bondo is 1 inch squirt of catalyst to a golf ball sized blob of Bondo. That it doesn't sound very scientific, and it's not, but that's what they recommend. So I'm calling that 1/4 of a golf ball. It's not much Bondo at all. So I'll use a 1/4 inch squirt of hardener. There we go. Now, the working time with Bondo is not a lot, so don't mix up more than you can spread. When I first covered the dome of the helmet, I was using entire golf ball sized batches of Bondo, but now I'm down to 1/4 batches or less. Make sure you get the color even. So far it's not even, it's kind of marbly. And you have to make sure even to get it all off the spreader, get everything mixed in good. Okay. I like this top they give you for the Bondo can. I mix my Bondo on it. It makes a good surface to do that. I'm going to spread my Bondo into all the low spots that I've got after sanding. Spread it in a couple of directions just to make sure it bonds really well to the areas you want to get it in. You don't want to go with too much Bondo because you've only got to sand off the extra. You know, all that sanding is a lot of work. Here's all my low spots. I'll try and work on one side of the dome at a time. That way I don't put the uncured Bondo in my lap and mess up my pants too much. Find all these low spots. Yeah, it's pretty stinky. All right, well, I hope you got the idea. We're going to put this Bondo on here and then give it another sanding and see if there's any more low spots. And basically, it's apply, sand, and repeat. And we're just going to work this thing until you get the level of smoothness that you want on your dome. Now, this is a display helmet. Naturally, we're not going to go diving in it. My father-in-law asked me yesterday, how deep can you go on this? Well, as deep as your imagination can fathom. How's that?
Haha, good fun there.
Now I'm filling this gap and it's popping out because there's a little dust in there. Try and blow off all the dust
There, I'm getting a headache.
from your sanding.
Videographer's
All right,
bailing.
videographer's bailing. See you next time. Bye now.
Bye.